Because a lot of the tech industry doesn't know how to blend, doesn't know how to actually reach our industry.
A platform of people interacting with one another can go viral. iTunes can't go viral. You know, something can go viral on TikTok or Spotify. And I think it's a totally different beast, but I think that there's this sort of misalignment when, as an artist or an artist team or a record label, you're looking at things starting to snowball for the first time.
I think it's important whenever you're talking about the evolution of music that you don't over-romanticize how great it was versus how it is.
People feel like they're screaming into a black hole, but they have to remember, like, you are speaking through a megaphone of millions of people.
I'm ecstatic about where technology and music is because everything's easier.
Grooving, keep on moving, flying, stop your crying, choosing while you're cruising. Music is the answer to your problem.
All right. How's everybody doing? All right. Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome to Music is the Answer. We are going to give you an entertaining conversation. So I guess the way to start it off, you know, as an industry, it's always kind of been the record labels, the publishing companies, the artists, and the songwriter. And somewhere, you know, in the early 2000s with iTunes, into MySpace and Facebook, and then progressing into the 2010s with streaming, we got this new player on the table called platforms. And I guess the first question for the group would be, how did we get here? You know, can we talk a little bit about the evolution of the music industry, let's say over the last 15 years, from streaming until now? How has the evolution of the music industry changed so that players are engaging with platforms on an everyday basis? So why don't we open this up to the floor? I'm looking at Stephen right now, so I'm going to hand it over to him
Just quickly,
first.
I'm sorry, in true artist fashion, we have Lizzie Jeff joining the stage right now.
Oh, okay. Oh, apologies. I had no idea we were getting joined by another artist. Lizzie, I'm so sorry.
It's all good. Over here. How y'all doing?
Incredible. Well,
Okay,
so I want to open it up now to Lizzie since she's joining and she's an artist. So Lizzie, I got to hear you talk a little bit in the green room, talking about your evolution of an artist, and maybe a way to kind of set the stage is, why don't you give the audience a little bit of your perspective about how you are looking at platforms and how you are looking at your creative process and how you're making that decision around which platforms are important for you.
Oh, that's a good question. As a music artist, how I'm looking at platforms and how I'm looking at my creative process and how it works for me? Okay, well, I mean, the creative process, you know, is what it is. That's a spiritual process for me. And as far as where we are now, I've been able to, you know, create a product through the music, through the shows, the concerts, and stuff like that. And I love it because there's this fusion of tech, music, you know, finance, wellness that's kind of emerging for artists in this new space. And so for me, I think it's important for us, as more companies are evolving, as an artist and what I represent, to know, you know, who's behind the companies, who's running them, what type of equity, what type of programs that they're doing, what they're doing for the community, for the artists, and things like that. I feel like those things are important, you know. So As far as the creative process, the platforms, there's social media, there's music, there's various things. And so for me, I'm just in a process of wanting to understand the companies a little bit deeper, their ethos, what they stand on, and if I align with that and how I want to introduce that to my community and my fan base.
Like your entrepreneurial spirit, if you will. And along the same lines, like Rockstar, maybe you can talk a little bit about, you came into the industry right when streaming started to pop, right? So some of the first things that you start to work on, you get success with Chris Brown, you're coming out of a different part of the industry where downloads are failing, and all of a sudden now streaming, is providing a new revenue source for the industry. How does your mindset change going from an artist who's starting to make a living from places like streaming into 2024, and you've been able to expand outside of just music, and you're looking at things like you've got your own wireless network, for example. Like, how does that mindset change in terms of when you're looking at different opportunities for your brand, for your business outside of just the straight music space?
Yeah, I mean, so music for me, kind of lost my voice, but music for me has always been a gateway drug. So, I was mad at first when I got in the music business because I'm like, yo, they're making so much. They were making so much more money before this digital age showed up. I'm like, Timberland's making $500,000 a beat, and these guys are making. And then me as the producer, the writer, the creator behind a bunch of these big artists. I'm sitting there and I'm like, yo, this is crazy because streaming, it cut the numbers ridiculously. So it made me have to figure out how to take music and make it not the punchline, make it, more of the opening statement. So I'm like, all right, cool. This is going to be a gateway drug for me. So I'm like, let's start it off with this. This is like wine, and we're gonna see what happens after this. So it just led to a bunch of other things. I've always been in tech. We won the CES Award for Most Innovative Technology 2013, and with the dual screen cell phone and all this other stuff. I've been in tech, but the music, the Grammys and all that type of stuff was just more like, okay, let me, because a lot of the tech industry doesn't know how to blend. Doesn't know how to actually reach our industry. So it's pretty much rocket science to get to a Chris Brown, a J-Lo, a Fergie, a Zendaya, a Rihanna, a Usher, like to actually be able to sit down and, you got barriers. You gotta go through a manager and an agent or this or that. The label ain't gonna let it happen. Things have to align. So for me, I was building heavy relationships with the artist direct and then bringing it straight to them and we'll go talk to the rest of everybody later because, I'm like, if he says yeah, what you're gonna say no to yeah? So yeah, for me, I just knew that the money was much bigger on the tech side of things, and that my passion. This is like a therapy session when I make hits. That's what I do. Is like, oh, okay, cool, but that's more of a frequency. I'm a frequency bender, but it has nothing to do with like the punchline in terms of just being successful and building an empire and being something else. That kind of is tied into just the forward thinking of, we're going in 2020 everything's technology. There's robots. My Cybertruck drives itself. I didn't even touch anything on the way here. I just put in the address and was just on the it's just what it is.
Cybertruck, by the way.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We next level. We're just it's that's where the future's at.
Self-driving.
Yeah, it's making the rest of my cars. I don't even care about the rest of the cars, and I got cars, and I don't care because at the same time, the Cybertruck is driving itself. It's making my life a lot easier. I don't have to yell at anybody. It's not, I didn't, you know what I'm saying? But the punchline is, the future's here. Knowing that, being ahead of tech was big for me. And that's why I started the cell phone company with T-Mobile and partnered with them worldwide. Because it was like, let's do an MVNO. And being the only black-owned cell phone company, MVNO, I had to make sure that tech was heavy, that my back office was heavy, which was my artist was supporting, and that everything was just aligned. And but music, like I said, for me back then, I used to be mad. Now, I'm ecstatic about where technology and music is because everything's easier with AI. I know you're probably going to jump into these things later, but AI and a bunch of different things with music. I mean, I think it's in a good space. A lot of artists, it's hard to adapt, but yeah, I think things are in a decent space now. The money's still not the same, but because you had actual tangible assets. You had Mariah Carey selling 30 million records at $22 and $25, and you get a deal at $17.99. That's a whole different check. Now it's like streams, and that's
yeah. So maybe we'll be able to talk to a couple of these people on the stage about where we can find additional revenue streams, because I agree that the streaming's not going to do it. And Stephen, I want to talk to you about that, but you also brought up a really interesting comment, Rockstar, when you said, "I don't have anybody to yell at," and I wanted to, as we're getting into the additional revenue streams, Mike, because you're coming at it and you were on the other side of the industry, on the label side, while all of these changes are happening. So what are you seeing while you're there and these new platforms are starting to disrupt the space that had really been, standardized, like over the last 50 years of, recording, master recording and broadcast radio as a main source of distribution?
Yeah, no, I think that, like Rockstar mentioned, you have to adapt. And, me being at a major record label, I always, even though I was an executive, I call myself a lifelong intern, because you're always learning. You're always adapting to what's happening in the ecosystem. And for me, you go from, and we mentioned it, back in the green room, we've seen the evolution of CDs to downloads, to streaming, to vinyl coming back again. And I think that, it's just a direct-to-consumer market that you're pulling also from other entities and other, sectors that might not even be music. It could be video games. It could be, lifestyle, because, lifestyle is a huge part of what, plays a factor into just music in general and how we consume everything. So for me, as being a marketer, I love to draw from other just sectors and see what they're doing and why are they so successful and how can we do that and implicate that and just replicate that, I should say, in the music sphere.
Yeah, absolutely. And Aiden, for you coming at it from a management perspective, how are you seeing the needs of artists change as they see more opportunities with startups coming in, new platforms creating solutions for problems that were creating roadblocks for, potential new creative experiences in the past?
Yeah, I think the supply chain used to be really simple, and that's why there was a person to yell at. There was vinyl going to a store, there were CDs going to a store, but a platform is a totally different beast. It's not a storefront. iTunes was trying to digitalize the storefront, but a platform with people interacting with one another can go viral. iTunes can't go viral. Something can go viral on TikTok or Spotify, and I think it's a totally different beast. But I think that there's this sort of misalignment when, as an artist or an artist team or a record label, you're looking at things starting to snowball for the first time. You're looking at something that doesn't correlate with the effort you're putting in. And I think that it means that there's a lot more of this game of patting yourself on the back when things go well and sort of like absolving yourself of the accountability when something doesn't go well. So I think that's like the biggest problem right now, is that like people feel like they're screaming into a black hole, but they have to remember like you are speaking through a megaphone at millions of people. So your job is to latch on to the customers out of those people, or latch on to the people that are going to stick with you, not the people who are maybe going to like listen once to a song or stream it or something like that.
Could I just add something to about the evolution before we move on to kind of a broader subject matter? I think it's important whenever you're talking about the evolution of music that you don't over-romanticize how great it was versus how it is. I mean, there's a lot of innovations that have happened about music consumption, even if you go back to cassette times, the 80s, that some of these things, these innovations are commoditizing music, which is bad. Some of these innovations are democratizing music and music creation, which are good, right? And so it's a lot of give and take to this. You know, it's a lot easier to make a really good sounding record on your own or with a few people in a room than it was. There was a lot of gatekeepers back then when I was doing music in my 20s. A lot of gatekeepers. You know, you basically just played out and hustled and tried to get better until somebody recognized you. You know, and now you can be more in the driver's seat for that. So that's really good. I just think it's important to separate the things between what is really commoditizing music and just devaluing, basically, music creation, right?
Well, let's dig
versus
into
what
that.
is making creating music and selling music and promoting music better.
How do you differentiate between the two?
Some of that, I think, is opinion, to be honest. I think some of it is opinion, but, you know, listen, the fact that it's easy to put something up on the airwaves, but you don't get paid for it, that seems to me like a system gamed for the wrong people.
Exactly.
All right?
I think
not going to mention any big companies or anything like that, but I think you can connect
Well,
the dots.
I think that lends itself to what, you know, Rockstar was saying around the way that musicians are being paid right now is not enough to pay the bills.
Right.
So therefore, you need to be able to go out and find additional sources of
and
revenue.
in some ways, that's actually forced or incentivized creators to think more in the business realm, right? To not just, I just make music, right?
Or quit.
Or quit.
That's the problem.
So there's some good things from that.
Most yes, good things, but most artists aren't strong enough to survive the storm that long, and that's what I've been. I sign a lot of writers, a lot of producers. Yeah. I take writers and producers that were huge at a time had fell off because of the industry. The industry, like you said, was full of gatekeepers, and those gatekeepers you might have had a gatekeeper that was ridiculous, evil gatekeeper, a treacherous gatekeeper, a great gatekeeper, but those were far and few. But now those don't exist anymore. There's no gate. You can't keep a gate in a digital era. Executive told me, I learned that early, and that's one thing with somebody like me. Executive told me when my manager Chris Lighty died, which he was like he created Violator, so he brought out Busta, Missy, legendary, huge manager. And when he died, a big executive I seen him at the BMI Awards, and a big executive told me, he said, "Man, I mean, now that Chris is gone, I mean, what are you gonna do?" I don't see people like you're too out there. You're too loud. He told me I'm too Kanye. That's what he said. He said you're too Kanye for this to work for you by yourself. You better go find another manager. Never found another manager. I said, do you know what kind of? But I said I'm gonna gas, brake, dip. You know what time it is. I'm gonna push the button. So after that, obviously 11 Grammys later, and 100+ million records sold. I had to tell him like, yeah, you sound crazy. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of these, for me, when somebody tells me no, it motivates me to push the button, because now I got something to prove. I'm also a Scorpio. But the fact of the matter is, most artists, when you tell them no, they're like, dang, if he's telling me no, it's like they feel blacklisted, they feel put in a box, they feel out the way. It's rocket science to become rich in the music business right now. It's real rocket science. It's very hard. Even with a hit record, most artists get a hit record, they sign a publishing deal, they sign their life away. They get 100,000, 200,000. That money is gone within a year, whatever it is, and then you're not gonna get your next check for the next 4 or 5 years, because you got so many stipulations between what you're turning in. You're only getting 3% on a song, 5% on a song. You're getting bullied off songs. So the amount to become a multi-millionaire in the music business right now is like it's like an oxymoron. It's unbelievable. So it's like it's actually easier, they say, to get hit by lightning. So that's actually the odds right now. It's like being drafted to the NBA. So it's bad for certain artists, because they end up like quitting. I see like amazing singers, amazing writers, and they're like back to 9-to-5s, and yo, I'm about to go work for this insurance company. Yo, they're hiring here, and it's sad, and that's why. It's like the way the business is set up right now is you're either gonna crumble or you're gonna catapult. But for me, you know, thank God that I was never like a one-trick pony. But like right now, it's bad for executives. They're losing their jobs because they're scared to sign something or do something. One thing go wrong, it's over. You can't really make the label no money as an executive. So you're gonna sign something and then you're gonna go through the budget and they're gonna be like, yeah, like it's hard to find, it's hard to catch a Taylor Swift or a Bieber right now. So it's just, right now, tech has to be utilized in a way to make money, and a lot of people don't understand how to do that. And that's why it's rocket science. It's rocket science. Me, I had to create a cell phone company, go find the biggest company, or the third biggest company in the world in telecom, T-Mobile, then negotiate with Mike Seifer and Dan Thikes, the heads, and sit down and say, this is how, and map out a whole roadmap, but this is how we tag team, and then go bring in Live Nation for all the concerts, Rockstar Wireless, this is what we're doing every time you come out, then bring my rates down to $19.99 unlimited, then I had to do a million different things to line it up to even make it make sense to make, go get the millions and do what I did. But at the same time, it's like, it's rocket science. And honestly, I've made a lot of money in music, but you could run through that in 13 seconds. I done went broke in music about 16 times. It's ridiculous. You know how many checks I done ran through? And I'm doing whole albums. I'm executive producing Chris Brown's whole album. Like, I'm giving the artists, I'm putting them on. The producers, I'm putting them on. So it's like, it's crazy. It's unusual. Yeah, but the music business is a little depressing at times.
Yeah, I mean, that is honestly like unbelievable, and like kudos to you for actually like going through and doing that work, because there's not a book that you can read to tell you how to do that.
Can I just add on to that a little bit?
Please.
So I agree that it is rocket science, to do it in the traditional way. But as things evolve, like you're talking now about just the evolution of the music industry, so much power is now in the artist's hands where you can go direct to consumer. And it's all about building your community and your fan base, because even if you start small and after a show, you might be doing a show for 200 people. If you go and meet every single one of those fans and you get their email, you get their phone number, and you send text message blast, you might invite them into a Discord, a WhatsApp chat, whatever it is, you have that person for life and you create a connection. And that's why certain artists, you look nowadays, are selling direct to consumer on their website with their albums. You look at Kanye, just to bring him up, he did 100,000 units himself on his website, direct to consumer.
Yeah.
And now he's getting sued. The problem with that is that's the issue. See, he did that, but then they also came right after that and sued him. The problem with that is nobody has time in this day and age, and the level of bills and the level of press, to sit there and go do a show for 50 people and do this over and over in the same city, which is probably gonna be the same 50 people. At this point in time, it's so easy for execs and people to say, yeah, just build the fan base and do this and this. But really, the systems are supposed to be the punchline. They're supposed to be pushing buttons and putting you in places worldwide, pairing you with advertising, doing this and this, that. But right now, everybody's lazy. Even if the artist is, I know some of the most hardworking artists wake up every day, work all day, was ready to perform, do whatever you want them to do. But the actual, from that starting point you're talking about to actually getting some money, do you know how long that is? It's unusual, and you have to go viral. I know a girl right now, like I was on the other panel with Mackenzie, 22 million followers, no record deal, and no record sales. Because at the end of the day, it's a lot more complicated than just go build a fan. That is like 2000. Like, go build a fan base was like when people were like, yo, I'm playing for the House of Blues. House of Blues don't even exist no more. So it's like, at this point in time, it's like we have to find new ways to get things out. Like his company, what he's doing with the tapes and bringing back something tangible. One thing that's amazing. See, one thing people do Now is technology run stuff. So when I was down at one point in time, I had to drop an NFT line. Look it up, the Roaring Leaders, Roaring Lions. I sold out 10,000 NFTs, but where did that come from? I was at a floor price, I was doing all this, and this was the first time I ever did an NFT, and it was rocket science, but people are looking for tangible items. Even though that's a digital asset, people are looking for tangible things. So CDs were sold because you had something. You had an album, you get to sit there, you go look through your artist, the pictures. People are going back to that, and I think that that's where everything's coming next, to be able to make a check, like how he's got that type of thing where he has an actual, here's a tape, here's a CD, here's whatever it is, tap this, and you get it, but you still get an actual asset where people want to go back to Target. Like I used to sit outside a CD, you know what I mean? I used to want to go to Tower Records, all of that type of stuff. That never changed. It's just digital era moves so fast, it makes it seem like people don't want to do it anymore because the companies are going out of business based off trying to keep up with the Joneses.
So let's, if I could just say what else, thank you for that plug, that was like priceless. But it also, I think, can get lost that, having something physical brings back the ability to give music. And, really think about that.
Yeah.
Think about how the holidays were when there was a physical medium that mattered, right? Like, Barnes & Noble's going off, like that was the busiest place, right? There's a music section. So I get really excited about that too, the ability to actually bring back the gifting of music, and
well,
sharing.
I think there's two really important things at Rockstar that you just mentioned that two of the people on the stage that are working on solutions for. First, I want to dive into what you're doing, Stephen, with what you describe as phygital projects. Am I saying that the right way? Phygital?
Phygital, yeah.
Phygital. Okay. And I also saw a really, really cool phygital drop that Warner had done about a week ago with the Green Day's Dookie 30th anniversary, where they took these nostalgic products and loaded them with music, and it was really successful. And I think you're looking at a format that is, to Rockstar's point, it's opening up a new area of fandom that doesn't exist right now in streaming. Like,
can I underscore that?
Please.
It's something that doesn't exist in the US, it's something that doesn't exist in Europe, but in K-pop, for example, it's everything. Right? They're selling millions of copies. They're dominating the charts in the US. It's all through physical sales, and it's all through tipping on live streams, which is like a whole dynamic that exists in entertainment in Asia that isn't a thing here. Yep. Right? If an artist goes live, they have no chance at taking in money. So, and Twitch and things like that are obviously trying to change that. But I think that like one of the main things here is that people assume a type of demand that isn't necessarily always there, and it takes a band retraining the audience, or it takes new types of products coming out, or it takes nostalgia to even like create a world where those things can be possible again. The US consumer music is incredibly lazy. Yeah. Right? You look in like Australia, Triple J, the radio station there, the Hot 100 day is the day where everyone votes for their top 100 tracks, and there's a whole cultural moment around it. And if we had anything like that in the US, I think it would look really different for creatives, honestly.
That's a really good point. In a sense, we're trying to bring back or reimagine the physical format, and in this digital age, it just, to me, when I started looking at this opportunity, it actually started with my desire to bring back the ability to give music in a mixtape. That was my origin story. It's like, man, I miss being able to bring a cassette or a CD even to a party, because that's what my friends expected me to do. And then it just kind of sat with that idea for a while, and I noodled it and thought, well, you could actually do that, connect streaming services to a physical product, and just put the data on there to play whatever playlist you wanted, and suddenly that takes on a whole new shape, right? And then I realized there was just a much bigger demand, need, opportunity, you name it, but it's just, actually I have to give my son some credit for that, because, at the time, he's 17, he's 20, the fact that his friends were actually like to go to the vinyl record store and were curious about cassette tapes, and I think there's almost an understandable correction from the convenience of mobile phones and the digital age, to almost like a correction to like, hey, we're still all at our core, we're still human beings, and we like to collect things and covet things that mean something to us. And there's no more impressionable age than, like 15 to like 25. So it's no surprise that they're the ones gobbling up the most vinyl right now, right? So when I saw that, I was just like, well, all this adds up to a much bigger opportunity and a much bigger need out there. And having a music background myself, having played music and toured in my 20s, I also knew from that perspective how important it was, when in that moment, when you have a captive audience and they just love what you're doing, to have something to sell. And I thought, well, God, if you had something to sell that could actually permanently connect you in a more personalized way, then that's just like trifecta.
But this is super anti-platform in a way, right?
In a sense, but you know what? It's funny. It is, but we have
Still
for the
digital
time
though.
being,
It's not
we've actually
anti-platform
said
because
be the platform.
his whole thing is digital.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything you still have to deal with a digital platform. He just kind of blended them, which is great. I feel like
blended it.
He's like, I can't get away from the platform, but I need to get back to a tangible asset.
Yeah, we're not sure we're going to stick with it, but one of the things we've used and we've tried, and it seems to land pretty well, at least when we talk with artists, is we say be the platform. And really, we are trying to do that with our product. Web3, we want the artists, the creators that use it, to have the data, to have the relationship with the fan base. And it's astonishing when you think about it, Rockstar, that beginning of time of music formats, no artist has ever known who's actually bought their product. There's always been a middleman. There's always been a broker, and that's also what makes me excited is a platform, for lack of a better word, that the artists can use to sell directly to their fan base and to be able to thank them personally on a first name basis, and then give them opportunities for first dibs on tickets or personalized merchandise or maybe even some unreleased tracks. Because
it's mandatory in anything you do at this point. You have to have incentivized platforms is the only option at this point. That's the whole future, because it can't just be one thing anymore. I've realized people's attention span is terrifying.
And it's
like,
what is the attention span? How did that change over time on Spotify, Mike? Between like lean forward, lean back listening.
Well, I think, just over the course of the last 15 years, the attention span has gotten shorter and shorter as content has got more and more saturated. So as we've moved towards this Friday release week, the life cycle of music gets shorter and shorter and shorter because the amount of time that it's in areas where it can be programmed lasts for shorter and shorter amount of times. Yeah. So the hits are smaller than they used to be. They travel not as far as they used to travel, and a lot slower than they used to travel. So that is creating less hits, less superstars, and it creates more opportunity for medium-sized artists to be able to grow their audiences and grow their communities. One of the things that I'm really interested in with everything that we're talking about with this is, and Rockstar, you went into it in terms of how much work went into building this wireless platform. And we've all had experiences with platforms like Lizzie, you as an independent artist have to deal with more data now than was ever expected of an artist. It wasn't expected of an artist to be able to be data literate, and now it's commonplace. You need to be able to understand what your audience is telling you, what your fans are telling you. So my question for the panelists, first, starting with the artists, is how do you go about starting to manage all of that data that's on these other platforms? Is there a process that you go through in terms of deciding which is the most important, or are we kind of just all putting it into a bag right now, and when we get to it, we get to it?
So if you start.
Well, no, I mean, well, I was expecting you to answer. So what you're asking is that the bag thing is break it down a little further.
So I'm saying to you, like, it used to be you would only just get data from your album sales or your Spotify streams. Now you've got social platforms. You've got a multitude of social platforms. You've got a multitude of streaming platforms. You've got other NFTs.
A lot more studying.
There's a lot more studying that goes into play into your business to be able to understand like what's actually working and what is just par for the course, you know? Like, how are you taking advantage of the
How do you figure out what's working and what's
not?
I mean, honestly, it's studying now. This has become a job. Like, it used to be like, yo, let me grab my guitar, like, let me, like, smoke some weed and just figure this out. Like, that's just not what's happening. Like, there's not no type of that type of activity anymore. Now it's like, it's like stressful. It's like you have to sit down. It's like, what's this platform called I'm supposed to sign up for? And then what am I doing? And
It's a lot.
What is this? And do they have a market? Okay, so it's there. Then you put out a whole album and it's just sitting there. And they're like, okay, so should I call somebody and ask them? Can they push the button? Like, so then you don't know who to call. And then you got to go online and Google, who do I call? And then AI's like, call Siri. And then Siri's telling you to call the other. It's just crazy. It's like you're never getting anywhere. And then it's like you end up in a situation where you're like, dude, I just did a whole run in a circle and I still don't have anybody listening to my music. So then you have to find a way to get your music playlisted, which is like, bro, like, who's got money for that and who are we calling? Who knows anybody at Spotify? Nobody knows anybody at Spotify.
Spotify can't even do anything anymore because it's all algorithmic.
Well,
so,
yeah, it is. I know, and Spotify get to taking stuff down ASAP. So that's the thing. It's like Spotify. You start to get in an algorithm, and then if any of the marketing will throw you in a bot algorithm where they want it to just naturally generate or anything like that, Spotify be like, that algorithm's weird. You're taking off too fast. Take his music down. And now I gotta send y'all a letter that's like, yo, can you put my music back up? And then DistroKid's like, we out of this. You gave me my little 1999. I don't got time right now. And then United Masters is acting crazy. I'm like, yo, Steve, I'm calling people like, yo, what y'all got going on with this? He's like, I told you to buy that other package with the other, that they said. It's like, yo, after a while, you're like, you know what? Starbucks don't seem that bad. Because it's like, bro, who has time to politic creativity? Politic and creativity is not really what anybody wants to do. At this point in time, I feel like the systems have got to get easier because it's not fun anymore. It's really not fun to create. Only in my position where I'm somewhere in the hills and I'm all ducked off and I can just go downstairs and just create and I don't have to, it's not determining whether or not I'm going to be in my house next month or not. Like then you get some freedom, and that's why I say it's a gateway drug, because that hustle is like hard, bro. It's very hard.
I'm gonna speak on that.
Oh, go ahead. No, I was just saying it's also, artists are giving up way quicker now. You know what I mean? I'm not giving any excuses to any lazy artists or anything like that. Like, you're gonna have to sit there and push the button all the way around the board. But relying on the executive, absolutely not. Relying on a label, absolutely not. Relying on anything other than your knowledge, sitting there and studying, you got to really treat this like a course. Like, this is the course of music at this point, and you have to study it and break it down to a science, and then you're going to have to approach it with a business plan, and it's going to have to make sense, and you're also going to have to go find the funding for it and all the backup plans the same way you would vet anything else. It's very ridiculous at this point in time. But
now listen, Rockstar, if there's some artists out there, you got to give them some good news.
Okay.
You gotta
no, I know. I mean, I'm not trying to tell y'all
not all that bad.
The music business. But all I'm saying, my goal is not to say don't mess with the music business. But I'm just saying, if you're going to mess with the music business, don't think that you're just going to come out here and go to 3rd Street Promenade and play a guitar and now you're a star. That's not happening. Now you have to break it down to a science. Write the vision, make it plain. put it in some type of format that can be executed on a higher scale all the way through from beginning to end. And at any time that you start relying on somebody else for it, you're going backwards. So you have to put yourself in a position where, like, I'll go get somebody that has nothing to do with music to fund something that got nothing to do with, like, I'm blending genres, and then I end up in a situation where I'm stress-free. Like, you don't know about this, you don't know about this, and I'm gonna just do my thing, and I'm in the mix going viral. You know what I mean? But I'm just saying, you can, listen, go do it, but just have a plan with it. Don't just think, a plan. That's all I'm saying. I know I sound I'm pessimistic, but what the hell?
Aiden, real quick, can you give any thoughts about like a solution for a system for that?
What Mike's building?
Well, also, I think what a lot of people are building in terms of building solutions for entrepreneurs, for artists to be able to exist without having to deal with all the bureaucracy and the bullshit that goes into the legacy industry.
Yeah, I think, like, in a nutshell, you have to respond to a world that moves this fast with this many independent artists and teams coming in and out of someone's career with something that isn't like a tool for companies, but is a tool for creators and creators teams, right? And that could be anything from like a new revenue stream, a new opportunity, a new digital product, to the technology that underpins that or tells someone what to do. I think that Mike can maybe speak to that, but that's what he's building. On my side, it's more about being the rails or the infrastructure to facilitate that. So the way to get music out to the world, to make sure your money's being collected, to make sure that the more revenue streams, the more opportunities, the more surface area music has within platforms, that you're making the money that you can make, that you're chasing those fractions of the pennies that add up to the royalty check in the end, right? It's no longer about like 10% of an album sale, it's about 10% of a stream, right? Which is a fraction of a penny, so.
Cool.
Them pennies suck.
Lizzie, you got anything you want to add?
Do you know how many pennies you got to add up to get a check? It's unusual.
He's not lying. I feel so seen.
And then you'll mess around and you'll have stuff in territories you don't know about, and you have companies collecting all your stuff, then it goes into a black box if you don't grab it in 3 years. So make sure y'all really study if you want to really figure out how to go get some money. I don't care if you're executive manager, whatever. Go study. There's a lot of money out there attached to records that you don't know nothing about. And there's a lot of companies that collect them and are specifically there to collect them, but they just have no promo. I don't know why. I found out 7 years into the music business that there's companies collecting, certain types of royalties. It's not just, this, that, and the third, but there's, territorial situations where you might have, another 100, 200,000, which is life-changing for a struggling artist that sat there and, say you were a part of a hit. A lot of, writers and producers get a big break. You get your big break, you get part of a hit. There's money all over the place, and they're not going to tell you about it. Nobody is, because, ignorance is going to have you in a situation. But go study where the bread's at, because there's a lot of money other places. Like,
he's not lying. Yeah. It's like legit. There's like massive teams within record labels that their entire job is just to go out and identify things like this.
And there's over $1 billion of global uncollected, what's called black box royalties.
Yeah.
What we're building at Patch Bay is the easiest way to manage your music rights so that all that work gets done with the least effort. The answer shouldn't be to like train artists to go and find all the societies like IMRO, the Irish PRO on behalf of songwriters. Like, that's not the solution here. The solution is also not yet blockchain for music rights. It's about an easier way to do the work and a bunch of things that'll do the hard work for you. So
you guys are smart. Blockchain is not digestible for a regular person. That's the problem with the blockchain and the music business. Everybody's like, well, we're going to go over here to the blockchain and we're going to do this and then every time somebody comes at me with a blockchain music, because everybody comes at me with every type of company to tag team. Like, you think you can get Chris Brown to post this blockchain? I'm like, bro, the fact of the matter is nobody knows what is. You guys are like tech guys. You know what I mean? You're tech guys. All of y'all are all tech people. You know what I'm saying? On the low, though, it is what it is. But a regular person can't digest the blockchain. It's dang near impossible to figure out how to make some money and collect a royalty people don't even know what a smart contract is. Most people don't even understand anything about the blockchain besides knowing what Bitcoin is. So I think people have to start doing breakdowns for that too. I think there's a win there if somebody could start breaking down to layman's how the future works in situations like the blockchain. You know.
Can I just add a little something to that? So that's a super valid point. And I go to my co-founder and I. We've been to many like tech conferences, and there's a lot of talk about Web3 and how it's going to change the world and blockchain, and a lot of people patting each other on the back. And sometimes it really is an eye roller for me. I got to be honest, because it's like for me, I really come at this the origin from wanting to create a product that could be meaningful, that could be valuable, okay? It wasn't because I wanted to build a blockchain or Web3 company, but it just became obvious that that technology was gonna let me do a product that could be the most meaningful and the most valuable. And as far as communicating like how blockchain can be beneficial, I think I can make it really simple. If a product like this, if an artist can sell a product like this through their social channels by saying, hey, get one of these, there's only so many that I'm gonna sell. They say, they click here, they buy it, okay? Now they're gonna buy that, and as soon as they buy it, you're gonna get that money because of the smart contract. There's no going into one bank or from one person to another. It's instantaneous. So there's the first part of why that will be. And then the other part is you're gonna actually know who bought it. So if I bought it, they'd be like, hey, Steve, thanks. Like, it's that simple. And you'll literally know everybody who's bought your product. And anything that you put out on that private portal, like a first look, an invite to this or that, you're putting it out directly to them. And that's a part of what blockchain can do for that product. Forget about the crypto part of it or whatever for that moment, and just focus on the infrastructure that allows that to happen. Because that hasn't ever been possible to get rid of all the gatekeepers, right? Yeah.
That was amazing too, but it's just crypto. But what you're saying is amazing. All that's great. But somebody, in order to become the artist that doesn't have all the knowledge you have, they're going to have to study the blockchain to know what exactly is happening. Because the CD, you print a CD, you put it in a package, and you hand it to somebody, and this is what's going on. The blockchain is like, so are we buying this with Ethereum? Are we buying this with this? Are we buying, and then when you go on the back end of what's happening, you have to realize that it's volatile, so it's up, down. Like one day, yeah, you made $800, but the next day you might have made $8 because it dropped so dramatically because the coin market just switched into this and this, and now you got to switch the type of coins you're selling. It's not as simple as just like that, but the way you're breaking it down, you're making it easy for the artist, which is great, but they still have to study if they're going to have to effectively.
Well, I think any Web3 company, if they're going to do it well, to your point, they've got to do it in a way that isn't even necessary for any artist to even know or care about what blockchain is, honestly. Like, you've got to do it in a way that's like, look, here's a product, you can buy it directly from me, and we're going to thank you on a first name basis.
So outside
of blockchain.
Did they cut us off? Can we get Rockstar another microphone if we've got time? While we're waiting for that, I want to take that thread. Oh, are we getting music or are we off? We'll play it off. Well, thanks everyone for having us.
Guys, we're going to have to wrap up. If
All
everyone
good.
could give a big round of applause for the future.
Thank you, everybody.